Business 101 students, hi, Catherine Robertson here. Just checking in with you on week 2. So some of you are still finishing up with your homework for week 1 and also your discussion post. I'd like you to have it in by, the end of the day today. But if you're running into trouble, please reach out to me, crobertson@ec3pa.org, or you can always shoot me a text, 814-490-6473. I may or may not get back to you this evening, but if you needed an extra day or something as you were struggling. Again, I realize the syllabus, I have not updated the syllabus to tell you that you need to submit your homework via the online portal on Blackboard. In week 2, again, make sure that you are submitting through the online portal. If you forget or you aren't sure and you want to email it to me, that's fine too. It's just that it automatically gets loaded into your grade book. So week 2 is open and visible. Again, week 1, there were 2 chapters, a discussion post, and for you to pick a publicly traded company in your discussion post. If for some reason you did not do that, I will post another discussion. Maybe I'll put it up this week that allows you to throw your company in there as well, have everyone put their company in there so you can see the other companies that'll be presented at the end of the term via PowerPoint. All right, so this week we are looking at chapters 3 and 4, and 3 really starts to talk about globalization, and 4 talks about ethics. So if you are looking at chapter 3 in the text, you will notice that the PowerPoints kind of go through how communication has changed and technology has changed, in particular international trade, but is also the flow of information. So one of the things that we are now able to do is we can have meetings virtually, just like I am having this virtual video. I'll have this video made and then I'll send it to you, and you have the ability to view it. 20 years ago, this was not an option. 30 years ago, there was really no internet. And so if you think about companies that have been around for 50 years or more, which is a lot of the larger companies that we see these days, how have they navigated the changing technology and how they are able to reach all over the globe in such a efficient manner. So then we talk about things in this chapter, the things that are important. And 4, exchange rates. Make sure that you understand that one nation's currency, how it relates to another. So a lot of us are familiar with Canada. Maybe we are familiar with the pound, things like that, how ours, and the changing. So sometimes our dollar is worth $1.50 in Canada. Sometimes when we go to Canada, our dollar is only worth $1.20. And that doesn't sound like a big deal when we're talking about $1, but when we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, it can be a very big deal. Importing and exporting, most of you have heard of that at some point. Make sure that you review that through the chapter. Franchising and foreign franchising. Joint ventures, where companies join forces either as a partnership, which is an agreement between 2 or more groups that act like co-owners, or strategic alliance, where there are 2 firms. You might have a partnership between 2 owners, whether they are in the same country or in different countries. Also, the same thing can happen with 2 firms or 2 companies and have a strategic alliance. Without actually merging, they just kind of work together. Some of the things that we see when we're thinking about barriers to trade, are the things like economic differences. There are certain places in the world that are very different from us here in the U.S. as to how much money they make on a daily basis, to the luxuries they have, such as electricity and warm water, clean water. Political and legal, there are a lot of different political environments throughout the globe. Also socio-cultural, very different throughout the globe. So when we're thinking about globalization, global trade, foreign investments, and moving our companies into foreign territories, those are some of the high points that we have to think about as managers, as organizations overall, as to how we seamlessly kind of move into those environments. All right, so a couple of things here relating to some countries have different types of trade restrictions, and depending on things coming in or going out. And some of you have heard of something called a tariff, taxes that are levied against imports, things coming in, say, to the US. We would tax them to try to keep that balanced. An embargo is a complete ban. We had an embargo with Cuba for decades, where we did not allow anything from the US to go to Cuba, and including flights. You could not catch a flight that's started in the US and landed in Cuba. If you wanted to, you could fly to Toronto, you could fly to the Bahamas and then to Cuba. There were a lot of different ways to get there, but you could not fly directly from the US. Okay. European Union. So some of these things have since kind of dissolved. The European Union and also NAFTA, the North America Free Trade Agreement, these are two things that in the last 10 years we have seen kind of fall apart. And especially NAFTA, which was this treaty that had been going on since the early 90s, that we could trade freely with Canada and Mexico. And so at one point, within the last 10 years, some of the trading that went on with Mexico became more taxed than it had before, and it was no longer a free trade situation. So globalization, I have two short videos for you, video 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. Please review those. So you're going to read the chapter, go through the PowerPoint as a review, and then go through the videos. Chapter 4 is really about ethics and some of the things. So the key high points and takeaway from business ethics, right? There's a ton when we think about ethical dilemmas. And my favorite slide is this legal ethical matrix. And this is slide, it's actually in your text, and it is slide, if you're looking at the chapter 4 PowerPoint, exhibit 4.1, slide 5. And there are 4 types of things we could consider. Legal and unethical. An example would be producing products you know will break before their time. So legal, but unethical. Legal and ethical, the great ones, right? Rewarding integrity, leading by example. Illegal and unethical. These are the big no-nos, right, on this matrix. Embezzling money, practicing collusion. Collusion is illegal. With competitors, and things that are illegal but seem ethical, providing rock bottom prices only to distributors in underserved areas. So these are this legal ethical mix. The other one that always gets me is the universal ethical standards in exhibit 4.2, slide 6 in chapter 4. These items that we don't think about on a regular basis but are really important, and then we think, do we adhere to these ourselves, and how do we expect those in the trenches working, running giant companies to have all of these characteristics? Trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. When you look through some of these items, like for example, trustworthiness, things like be honest, don't deceive, cheat, or steal, do what you say you're going to do, is trustworthiness. So how often do we see that in the business world? So really think about these 6 when you are looking through this chapter, chapter 4. And then, thinking about this idea of social responsibility by organizations and some of the stakeholders that, are impacted by companies which are either proactively socially responsible or maybe do nothing. They have no contribution to society or the environment outside of them being their company and making profits. So we see the full gamut, really. The other thing that's important to touch on in this chapter is something called planned obsolescence, deliberately designing products to fail in order to shorten the time between consumer purchases. The standard light bulb is set up that it will fail after a certain amount of time. It burns out. Tires. There's rubber out there that has been designed that will never wear out. Basically, you could buy a pair of tires and have it your entire life. Instead, you go and you buy tires, and if you that have bought tires, you can buy tires that last for 30,000 miles, ones that last for 40 or 50,000, ones that last for maybe 60,000. And of course, the longer they last, the more money they are. So it is very specifically designed to fail at a specific amount of miles. And so they can do this planned obsolescence without it being illegal. The other thing is this Sarbanes-Oxley. These are two, sometimes it's called SOX Act, and this was in 2002, and it set higher ethical standards for public corporations, and particularly in their accounting practices. So in the video for Chapter 4, you will see the short video. Actually, it's not that short. It's about 15-20 minutes. Is business ethics an oxymoron? You may want to put the closed caption because the professor that is doing the TED Talk, sometimes he is a little tricky to understand. But this is an amazing video, and every time I watch it, I think he does a lot of referencing, though. He's actually talking to other faculty members. So if you're trying to see what, from the TED Talk aspect, what the professor, who is he addressing, because he does make a lot of references to certain books and things like that. And just try, and you can pause it if there are certain things that seem of interest to you that you might want to look into further. This is a great video, though, that this chapter is a very interesting chapter, Chapter 4, relating to business ethics. There are 2 chapters there for the homework, and again, you can submit your homework through the portal here on Blackboard.